I want to go ahead and introduce a little bit of that, and then we're going to go ahead and move on. Antoine Worthy, a 4th grader at Phyllis Wheatley Elementary School in Northeast Washington, D.C. Sat in his wooden desk at the front of the classroom on Monday afternoon. He stared down at his empty desktop and was nervous as he felt sickness in his stomach. And he unfolded and unfolded his hands on his desk. He played aimlessly with a sharpened pencil. And under his desk, he bounced his right leg up like a hummingbird in steady motion, because he knew that any moment, Miss Palmer, his reading school teacher, would call him to the front of the class to read from a book. The problem was, Antoine hated reading, especially out loud in front of his classmates. What if he made a bunch of mistakes? He never considered himself a good reader anyway. So why was Miss Palmer ready to torture him like that? Didn't she understand that everyone didn't feel comfortable reading in front of a tired classroom? That was very good, Tabitha. You may take your seat now, Miss Palmer said to Tabitha Brown. Tabitha had just read from a Judy Blume book, and she was so pleased with herself that she bounced back to her desk with a smile. So what, Antoine thought to himself as he watched Tabitha sit down across the aisle from him. She sat directly from him. Girls like reading, he thought to himself, but I like math and science and gym. Nevertheless, Miss Palmer called him to read next anyway, just like he knew she would. And she told him to pick out a book over the weekend. Although Antoine had been able to select his own book of choice, he still was not eager to read it. Picking out your own book was like picking out your own nasty medicine to slurp from a spoon. He still didn't want to read, and so he picked up that book from the desk, and he was hoping that Miss Palmer would let him get a chance to and skip him and not call him to the front. He was thinking that he would tell her that he forgot his book and left it at home. Or maybe he would say that he has a sickness to his stomach, and maybe he would lie and make up, Antoine Worthy, could you please step to the classroom and read your book? She jumped on him. It was too late. Miss Palmer called him to his death. Antoine looked at her wide eyes, praying that she would allow him a second chance to live instead of stepping forward and reading from his book, but it was no use. Miss Palmer looked toward the spot in front of the classroom and waited for him so he could walk up there and read. Antoine took a deep breath and reached his desk, and he pulled out his Werewolf of PS-40, a Kid Carmel story. It was a book about a young brown boy who solved mysteries with a private investigator sidekick named Ernie. Antoine sure took his time walking up to the front of that classroom, though. It was a small paperback, but it seemed like it weighed a ton as he shuffled his feet and moved real slowly to the front of the classroom. Come on, Antoine, we all know you can walk faster than that. I've seen you in gym class. You're one of the fastest boys in the classroom. But that's gym class, Antoine thought to himself in a panic. That's not book reading. Once he stood in front of his classroom peers, Miss Palmer's large brown desk, he turned to face everybody. And Antoine immediately spotted some of the other boys who were ready to snicker and tease him. At least some of them were ready to laugh already. And he understood the shame and the terror of being in front of the classroom. All the guys felt that way about reading. Only the boys who were geeks and nerds of the classroom, the punk boys, felt all calm about reading. Not the gang of athletic types, they never wanted to read. Now you may begin now, Miss Palmer told him. Stop pausing and go ahead and do it. Antoine stood in front of the class and daydreamed about being anywhere, somewhere, outside of his classroom, but Miss Palmer was not going to allow it. We're still waiting, Antoine. We're going to hear you reading every time you're ready. Antoine fumbled through the book with his brown hands, and he uttered, A few of the brown boys started to laugh from the back of the class. Silence, or I'm taking away your recess. Miss Palmer warned all the boys with a pointed finger. That didn't make Antoine feel any better about it. What if she punished the classmates? So what? He still would have to read that book in front of the classroom. So he cleared his throat and he looked down at the book again on page 1. It was the first day of school, Antoine stuttered at the beginning real slowly. The boys began to laugh in the classroom again. Samuel, no recess. Miss Palmer scolded the boy, immediately catching a silly classmate in the act. Samuel raised his palm in his face in shock. What did I do, we asked, his eyes stretching all wide and innocent. But it didn't work. Miss Palmer pointed a finger at him and said, you already know how hard it is to read. Nobody's going to get up there and read that easy, but you're all going to do it several times before you get out of this classroom. We're all going to learn how to read before we leave the 5th grade. I can promise every one of you that in this classroom. Every one of the boys looked at Miss Palmer's small chocolate brown in front of the class, and one tried to challenge her authority. But why do we all have to do that? Bobby asked her from the back of the classroom. He was big and bold enough to ask Miss Palmer a question for all the boys. It was obvious that all the boys didn't like to read. Antoine spoke in agreement with Bobby. He turned to face Miss Palmer's desk and he said, yeah, why we all have to read in front of the classroom? Couldn't she see that the boys would continue to laugh at each other and make jokes and lose their recess? They didn't care about reading. Other boys in the class felt the same way. They had lost their recess all the time. Mr. Palmer told them, because you need to read, okay? You all need to not fear reading and speaking intelligently in public. You got to learn to speak and read with confidence. But we can do that to ourselves. We don't have to read out in front of the class like that. We can read in private. Ms. Palmer smiled and said, no, you have to learn how to read in front of people. You got to learn how to be in confidence in front of people. Okay, get back to your reading, Antoine. Antoine went back to reading again. The girl tried, and the boy started laughing again. Cut it out. Cut it out. Stop it. You're all going to end up reading in front of this classroom. So you can laugh all you want to laugh, but each one of you guys are going to stand up here and do what you need to do. Okay, you got it. Too much reading.